If your grocery bill feels heavier than it used to, that does not automatically mean you became careless, weak, or bad with money. In many cases, it means you are moving through a system designed to speed up your decisions before you have time to question them. The modern supermarket is not just arranged to sell food. It is arranged to shape behavior. It uses labels, placement, lighting, packaging, habit, and convenience to make certain choices feel obvious, safe, or deserved. And when that happens, money tends to leave your pocket quietly, in small amounts that are easy to ignore until they become a pattern. That is what makes this so frustrating. Most of these purchases do not feel reckless. They feel normal, practical, like the kind of decisions responsible people make every week. But once you slow the process down and look at what is really happening, a different picture starts to emerge. The same few tactics show up again and again. Fear, familiarity, reward, convenience, identity, reassurance. And once you can see that pattern, the store loses some of its power. So in this video, we are going through 10 grocery items that often cost more than they seem to, not because the food itself is special, but because the psychology around it is. This is not about guilt. It is not about banning anything. It is about protecting your money by noticing where your choices are being pushed. And once you notice it in one aisle, you start seeing it everywhere. Number 10 is foods marketed with labels like diet, keto, paleo, or Whole30. This is one of the easiest traps to fall into because it feels disciplined, it feels informed, it feels like you are doing the right thing for your health. And that is exactly why it works so well. The issue is not that some people follow those eating styles. The issue is that supermarkets and food brands know a powerful label can shut down comparison. The moment a product says keto, paleo, or approved, many shoppers stop asking the most important question: what is actually different here? And very often the answer is not much. You might see a jar of keto peanut butter selling for around $11, then look right next to it and find a regular jar for $3 or $4 with the same ingredients: peanuts and salt. Same food. Same basic nutrition. Same purpose. But one label is selling reassurance, and reassurance can carry a huge markup. The same thing happens with paleo crackers, diet snack bars, keto granola, specialty sauces, and packaged treats built around trend language. They sound technical, they sound current, they sound safer than making your own judgment. But in many cases, they are still just combinations of nuts, oats, oils, salt, spices, and sweeteners dressed up as a protected choice. That is the hidden cost. You are not only buying food, you are paying to reduce the anxiety of choosing wrong. The control shift here is simple. If you follow a certain eating style, build it around regular foods first. Eggs, meat, vegetables, cheese, nuts, fruit, beans, plain yogurt, basic ingredients. Then let labels prove themselves before they earn extra money from you. If the ingredient list is nearly identical, the fancy version is usually not giving you more control. It is taking it away. And once you notice how a label can add $5, $7, even $8 to a basic item, you start to understand something important. In grocery stores, certainty is often priced higher than food itself. Number 9 is bottled water. This one does not usually take your money through fear. It takes it through routine. You grab a bottle because it is there. It is cold. It is familiar. It is near the entrance, near the checkout, near the place where your brain is already moving on to the next thing. There is no big decision. And that is exactly why it becomes expensive. A couple of dollars for water does not feel serious in the moment. But habits built on small, repeated purchases are often the hardest to see clearly. One bottle becomes another. Then a case. Then the standard thing you always toss into the cart without thinking. For a family where each person drinks just one bottle a day, the yearly total can quietly reach hundreds of dollars. And what are you paying for? Usually not better water. In many cases, bottled water is filtered municipal water packaged in plastic, moved across long distances, and sold back to you at a giant markup. The actual water may cost pennies. The rest is packaging, transport, branding, convenience, and habit. That habit matters. Because once a purchase becomes invisible, it stops feeling like a choice. There is also a second layer here. More plastic, more waste, more chance of warm bottles sitting in cars or garages, more money going toward a product used once and thrown away. Even if you ignore environmental concerns completely, the long-term math is still hard to defend. The control shift is not complicated. A home filter and a reusable bottle restore the decision to you. Keep one bottle filled before you leave the house. Keep another in the car if you need to. The goal is not perfection. It is breaking the automatic grab. Because this is the pattern. If something feels too small to track, that is often exactly why it drains money so well. Number 8 is fresh bakery pastries and baked goods. This is where the supermarket stops trying to persuade your mind and starts working directly on your senses. Most people do not plan a grocery trip around buying one muffin, one brownie, one cinnamon roll, or a few fresh cookies. Those items enter the cart because the store creates the right emotional moment. The smell hits first. Warm bread, butter, sugar, vanilla. Sometimes it is real baking. Sometimes it is scent pushed into the air to create the same effect. Either way, your body reacts before your budget does. That matters because bakery items often carry very strong profit margins. A pastry priced at $4 may contain ingredients that cost a fraction of that. Flour, sugar, eggs, butter, oil. None of those are rare. What you are really paying for is timing. The exact moment when the product feels comforting enough to bypass analysis. And that moment is carefully built. Warm lights, soft colors, attractive trays, placement along a path most shoppers will pass. None of this is accidental. The financial issue is not usually one huge purchase. It is the unplanned nature of it. Bakery spending tends to happen outside the list. And over time, the items we buy outside the plan are often the ones we remember least clearly, even though they show up on the receipt every week. The control shift here is not to pretend treats should disappear from your life. It is to decide on them before the store decides for you. If you want pastries, choose them on purpose. If you want a home option, a $2 baking mix can produce a full tray instead of one or two impulse items. That shift matters. The second you move a bakery purchase from impulse to decision, the emotional markup starts to weaken. Number 7 is big brand spices. This is a quieter trap because spices look small, harmless, and familiar. A jar for $3 or $4 does not seem like a big deal. But spices are one of the easiest places for packaging and brand comfort to overpower actual value. Many people have had the same experience. You shake a spice into a pan, and the aroma is weak. The flavor is dull. You assume you stored it badly or kept it too long. Sometimes that is true. But often, the spice was already losing potency long before it reached your kitchen. Large brands dominate shelf space because they sell trust. The bottle looks clean. The label is recognizable. It sits at eye level. So instead of comparing freshness, turnover, or price by weight, most shoppers just reach for what they know. That convenience comes at a cost. Ounce for ounce, spices can be among the most overpriced items in the store. And when the flavor is weaker, you use more to get the same result. So the jar empties faster, the food tastes flatter, and the cycle repeats. Meanwhile, bulk bins and smaller specialty markets often move spices faster. The packaging is less polished, but the product can be fresher, more fragrant, and significantly cheaper by weight. The difference is not usually branding. It is turnover. The control shift here is to stop treating spice purchases as automatic. Smell matters. Freshness matters. Quantity matters. Buying smaller amounts from a higher turnover source often gives you more flavor and more control than a larger branded jar sitting in the cabinet for years. And this connects to the larger pattern again. Familiarity is one of the most expensive forces in the store. Not because it always leads you wrong, but because it stops you from checking whether the easy choice is still the good one. Number 6 is buying organic automatically without really thinking it through. This is one of the most sensitive categories because people do not just buy organic for food. They often buy it for peace of mind. And peace of mind can make almost any price feel justified. The problem is not organic food itself. The problem is reflex. You stand in front of two nearly identical products. One says organic, and before the comparison even begins, your brain has already assigned it moral value. Cleaner, better, safer, more responsible. Once that happens, the rest of the thinking tends to fade. But not every organic premium delivers the same practical value. Some foods naturally carry lower pesticide residue. Others have thick peels or outer layers most people do not eat. For produce like avocados, bananas, onions, or sweet corn, the price jump may be much larger than the real difference you will experience in daily life. Yet shoppers often pay 30 or 40% more simply because the label feels like the better choice. The hidden cost is what that extra spending crowds out. Maybe you buy less produce overall. Maybe you skip variety. Maybe you tighten the rest of the cart to make room for a label that offered reassurance more than benefit. It can create the feeling of eating better while actually reducing flexibility. Stores understand this. Organic sections are often calmer, cleaner, brighter, and more carefully styled. The environment helps support the idea that a higher price equals a higher level of care. The control shift is thoughtful selection, not rejection. Some people prefer organic in certain categories, and that can be a reasonable choice. But make it specific. Make it deliberate. Decide where it matters most to you instead of letting the label make every decision for you. Because food supports your health through consistency, variety, and overall quality, not through one word printed on a sign. And by this point, a pattern should be emerging. Some products sell fear. Some sell comfort. Some sell identity. But the result is often the same. Less thinking in the aisle, more money on the receipt. So here is a good moment to pause and ask yourself something. When you walk through a grocery store, which feeling usually makes you spend faster? Being tired, wanting reassurance, or feeling like you should be doing better? That question matters because once you know your trigger, the store becomes easier to read. Most people watching this are not overspending because they lack discipline. They are responding to cues that were built to feel personal. And the more clearly you can recognize your own pattern, the easier it becomes to protect your money without feeling deprived. Number 5 is single-serve packaged snacks. These are sold as convenience, control, and organization. Especially for busy households, they look practical. Grab and go, lunchbox ready, easy portioning, no prep, no mess. But the premium hidden inside these products is often enormous. A small pack of crackers, cookies, nuts, or chips may only cost a little on its own, which is exactly why it slips into the cart so easily. But compare the price by weight, and it is common to find single-serve packs costing 2 or 3 times more than the larger version. You are not paying extra for better food. You are paying for division, wrapping, branding, and convenience theater. And the portion control argument often falls apart in real life. A tiny package can disappear before your brain even registers satisfaction. So instead of one serving solving the problem, it often leads to another pack, then another. More money, more packaging, not necessarily more control. This is especially effective with families. Bright colors, cartoon graphics, and phrases like perfect for lunchboxes turn ordinary snacks into a tool for feeling prepared. The store is not just selling food, it is selling relief to busy adults. Open your pantry and you can often see the pattern. Small packs everywhere. Quick to buy, quick to disappear, hard to remember individually, expensive when added together. The control shift here is to separate convenience from markup. A larger package and a few reusable containers can give you the same practical benefit without paying a premium every single time. Even keeping a simple snack station at home can do the job. Because once you learn to spot where packaging is pretending to be value, the shelf starts to look very different. Number 4 is pre-cut fruits and vegetables. This category looks helpful. Clean containers, bright produce, no knife, no peeling, no cutting, board. No mess when you get home. And when you are tired, that convenience can feel completely worth it. But stores know exactly how much people will pay to avoid one small step. A container of cut watermelon may sell for around $7, while a whole watermelon nearby costs $3 or $4. Same fruit, same starting point, very different price. The extra charge is not about rarity or nutrition. It is about labor, yes, but even more than that, it is about your mental state. The store is charging for the moment when you do not want one more task. There is another issue. Once produce is cut, freshness starts dropping faster. Exposure to air, light, and handling shorten its life. So you often pay more for something that spoils sooner. That is what makes this category so important. The convenience exists mainly at the moment of purchase. The downside shows up later in your fridge. For some people, there are situations where pre-cut produce makes sense. Limited mobility, smaller households, special circumstances. But for many shoppers, it slowly becomes a habit rather than a necessity. And once the habit forms, the same logic spreads to other parts of the store. The control shift is simple awareness. If pre-cut produce genuinely helps you use more fruit and vegetables, choose it intentionally. But if it is just fatigue making the decision, try replacing only one or two of those purchases with whole produce and see how much control returns. Sometimes the difference is just 5 minutes at home and several dollars back in your pocket. Number 3 is trendy superfoods. These products are rarely bought because your body clearly needs them. They are bought because they are presented as the missing piece. Goji berries, acai powder, maca powder, chia blends, ancient grain mixes, detox boosters, antioxidant packets. The language is always doing heavy lifting. Superfood, ancient, clean, vital, powerful. It makes the product sound less like food and more like an upgrade to your life. That is powerful marketing because once a food is framed as exceptional, shoppers stop comparing it to ordinary alternatives. A small bag with a premium label can cost as much as a week's worth of apples, oats, beans, or frozen berries. But it does not feel like an ordinary purchase. It feels like an investment. The problem is that superfood is not a scientific category. It is a marketing shortcut. Many of the nutrients highlighted in these products exist in regular foods people have eaten for generations. Blueberries, leafy greens, sweet potatoes, oats, lentils, beans, nuts. They may not sound glamorous, but they often offer similar value without the imported mystique. Social proof makes the trap even stronger. If you keep seeing influencers, articles, and store displays presenting the same ingredient as essential, it starts to feel like not buying it means falling behind. So you try one product, then another. Then eventually you have an expensive packet in the cabinet that you forgot to use. The control shift here is to ask one calm question before buying any trend-driven food. Where will this fit in my actual routine? Not in the ideal version of my life. In my real week. If you cannot answer that clearly, the product is probably selling aspiration more than nourishment. And that is a pattern worth catching early, because supermarkets profit very well from foods that only need to be exciting once. Number 2 is expensive coffee and energy drinks. These are some of the most emotionally protected purchases people make, not because they are necessary, but because they feel earned. A bottled cold brew, a fancy canned latte, an energy drink on a tiring afternoon, a quick boost before errands, a small reward after a long day. You are not just buying a drink. You are buying relief, motivation, alertness, and sometimes a tiny private moment that feels like it belongs to you. That is why the money disappears so quietly. $3 here, $5 there. Finish it in 10 minutes and move on, but repeat that several times a week, and it becomes one of those recurring expenses people rarely total up honestly. Over a year, it can become hundreds of dollars attached to a habit that never felt serious. There is also the cycle these products encourage. Sugar and caffeine create a short-lived lift, then a drop. The drop creates fatigue. Fatigue creates another purchase. The branding around these drinks makes that cycle feel empowering, productive, even connected to self-care. But often, it is just a loop. The control shift is not to remove pleasure from your routine. It is to stop letting convenience pricing define it. Home coffee, tea, a simple thermos, or even a deliberate once-in-a-while treat instead of an automatic one can break the pattern fast. The key is deciding whether the drink is a choice or a reflex attached to exhaustion. Because once reward becomes routine, it stops feeling expensive even when it is. And that brings us to the final category, which may look cheap on the shelf but can cost the most over time. Number 1 is processed heat-and-eat foods. Instant noodles, frozen dinners, packaged meals, shelf-stable cups, ready-made comfort foods that ask almost nothing from you except a microwave, hot water, or a few minutes of waiting. These products succeed because they seem affordable, manageable, and easy. When life is busy, they can feel like a lifeline. And to be fair, convenience has a real place in modern life. The issue is what happens when these foods stop being backup and start becoming the structure of the diet. At the checkout, the cost looks low, a few dollars here and there. But the deeper expense often comes later. Many of these products are built around sodium, low-cost fats, additives, and flavor systems designed to make cheap ingredients feel satisfying enough to buy again. They are engineered for speed and repeat purchase, not long-term nourishment. That can affect more than health. It can also affect skill. The more often every meal arrives pre-decided, the easier it becomes to lose confidence in basic cooking, planning, and ingredient use. And once that confidence fades, dependence on packaged convenience gets stronger. The store is no longer helping occasionally. It is setting the terms. The control shift here is not all or nothing. Keep convenience foods if you need them, but change their role. Let them support your routine instead of replacing it. Even a few simple repeat meals built from basic ingredients can reduce reliance on heavily processed options without making life harder. And that is the larger truth behind all 10 items. They are not problems because you bought them. Almost everyone has. They become expensive when they are chosen unconsciously, over and over, for reasons the store understands better than you do in the moment. Some products use fear. Some use habit. Some use smell. Some use identity. Some use exhaustion. Some use the promise of reward. But they all point back to the same system. The less you pause, the more the store decides. That is why the most useful tool in this entire video is not a coupon, a list, or a strict rule. It is a pause. 1 second in front of the shelf. Just long enough to ask, what exactly am I paying for here? Food, or the feeling wrapped around it? That one question can interrupt an impulse, expose a markup, or remind you that convenience is not always value. It can help you protect your money without turning shopping into a battle. It can help you notice when a product is solving a real problem and when it is simply monetizing stress, fatigue, or uncertainty. And once you start seeing these patterns, grocery shopping feels different, calmer, clearer, less automatic. You may still buy some of these items. That is not failure. The difference is that now the choice is yours again. If this made you look at your own cart a little differently, stay with that feeling. Because the more often you notice the pattern, the harder it becomes for the pattern to use you.